In this analysis, I will be looking into how this film explores the aspiration which pushes people to defy authority in a tyrannical situation, and how film theory is used to make the film successful in its meaning. This short film is a social comment on how people can be manipulated by authority and power. In many ways, it has a deeper meaning about a government that does not tolerate people with different opinions to them and like to dictate many aspects of life. 2 and 2 is a short film written and directed by Babak Anvari. 2 and 2 begins with the titles and the sound of students talking in class. The titles are presented on a blackboard and the writing is in white chalk. This helps the audience establish the setting of the film before seeing any of the characterized school setting. After the first titles are shown, the screen zooms out to reveal the dirty and discoloured classroom of boys. The setting of the classroom is dull and grey. This gives the sense that it is a working class school with not much money. As well as this, the students in the classroom are identically uniformed in black and white. This emphasises that they have no individuality. When the teacher enters, this instantly establishes who has the power. It conveys the hierarchy of the characters and that the teacher is superior. Next, an announcement by the head teacher reveals the true power behind the teacher and foreshadowing what's ahead. They are told to follow instructions from the teacher to the letter. The teacher's power over the children is exerted when one tries to defy him. He tells him he doesn't need to think and not to question him. Next, another child stands up and defies him. The teacher then gets 3 older students who are wearing red armbands to come in. The teacher then tells the child this is his last chance. The child writes 4 on the board and then is shot by the 3 older students. This again emphasises the teacher's power. This film could be seen as a cultural hegemony, which is the control of a socially miscellaneous society by the ruling class who manipulate the culture of that civilization. This could be in terms of the beliefs, clarifications, opinions and standards, so that their enforced elite class worldview becomes the putative social standard. This is clearly implied in 2 and 2 as the teacher can be seen as the elite, forcing the belief that 2 + 2 = 5 onto his students, clearly using his superior dominance to control what they think. But then, is the teacher really the powerhouse behind the despotic situation? As the message from the head teacher shows that the teacher is also following orders. The head teacher is like a dictatorial entity. You never see him in the film, only hear him giving orders, like a god from above. This suggests that the teacher is also in the same situation as the students, albeit he has more power than the students. Also, the use of the older students as soldiers imply that it is a traditional authoritarian regime in which the ruling authority, in this sense the head teacher, is maintained in power through repression, which is carried out by a system bound to the ruling power through personal loyalty. So this is that the older students are loyal to the teacher and head teacher, as they have been repressed into doing what they are told. The older students foreshadow what the younger students will become if they submit to the elite class. Karl Marx's theory of alienation can also be applied to this film. The theory describes the separation of people from characteristics of their species' essence as a repercussion of living in a culture of classified social classes. The alienation from the self is a result of being a robotic part of a social class, the order of which isolates individual from their humanity. I believe this can be seen in the teacher, as he is a worker that has invariably lost the ability to determine life and destiny. He's been deprived of the right to think and conceive of himself as the director of his own actions and to determine the character of said actions. Although he is an independent, self-realized human being, as an economic entity, he is directed to the goals and diverted to activities that are dictated by the bourgeoisie, in this sense, the head teacher. This is a system that is also being used on the students to control their actions and thoughts. What makes this film so successful in relaying its message across is its simplicity and its structure. If we look at the film applying notions from Edgar Allan Poe's essay, The Philosophy of Composition, we can see how the structure makes it effective. The 3 central elements of Poe's philosophy of composition are length. Poe believed that all literary works should be short. He especially emphasized this, believing the longer the story, the more diluted the content would be. This is apparent in 2 and 2, as being only 7 minutes keeps it to the point. If it were any longer, it would be adding unnecessary information. Method. Poe dismissed the notion of artistic intuition and argued that writing is methodical and analytical, not spontaneous. In 2 and 2, it is clear that it has been meticulously planned out structurally. Lastly, the essay states that a work of literature should be written only after the writer has decided how it is to end and which emotional response or effect they wish to create, commonly known as the unity of effect. Once the result has been determined, the writer should decide all other matters pertaining to the composition of the work, including tone, theme, setting, characters, conflict, and plot. I think in 2 and 2, the unity of effect has clearly been applied, as the ending is the real impact. To what extent will people sit back and accept the forces in power dictating their lives? Can we define the point when it becomes absolutely necessary to question orders? These are questions I'm left with after watching this short. The director clearly thought of the message he wanted to send before structuring the rest of the story. When it comes to the structure of 2 and 2, I think it can be looked at through Raskin's 5 parameters of story design. Raskin identified factors that make film stories function optimally. He found it useful to work with pairs of properties that can be thought of as balancing or completing one another. Each set of properties constitutes a parameter. When the 2 components of a given parameter are both fully present in a filmic event, Raskin believes their interplay shapes and enriches that event. When only one is present, or when they are out of balance, or there is no real interplay between the 2, he believes the filmic event will be that much poorer. If we apply these parameters to 2 and 2, we can get a better understanding of the story's structure and its effect. First is causality and choice. What this means is causality flows from choices characters deliberately make. Main characters that make things happen are more interesting to the viewer than characters to which things happen. So in 2 and 2, the teacher orders the students to follow what he says, gives the choice, or defy him. In that respect, a causal relationship exists between the two events, since one person attempts to get another to change what he knows. But at the center of each event is a choice freely made by the person in question, which is to defy the teacher. This gives the audience pleasure, stemming from the student's deliberate and of free will choice not to believe what the teacher says. Secondly is consistency and surprise. What this means is any character in a film should have characterization, a vital core of qualities that remain constant, but each consecutive act should be both surprising and yet fully matching with the character's definition already established. The character's behavior should be as unpredictable as it is consistent. This is clear in 2 and 2. If we look at the teacher's character, it is clear from the very start that he is a stern, powerful character, and we know from the basis of the dialogue he has with the first student to defy him that he is an forceful and assertive person. Therefore, when the teacher orders the killing of one of his students, this is in his definition as a character. At the same time, however, no one, neither we as viewers nor any of the other characters present, could foresee the killing. In this respect, it exemplifies an action which perfectly balances consistency and surprise. Thirdly, there is image and sound. This is a pretty simple concept. It basically means that there should be a balanced dynamic interplay between sound and image. Action on screen has to be visually exciting as well as having auditory excitement. In 2 and 2, I find this concept isn't really used, as the only sound in the film is dialogue. There is no additional musical sound, but I don't think this makes the structure any less impactful, as I believe having just a raw dialogue and voiceover in the film really emphasizes the power between characters. Also, there are parts which are silent, which makes the action on screen more intense. It is also worth noting at this point that reducing the spoken component is a generally desirable effort with regards to story designs in film, which 2 and 2 does not, making the film feel somewhat uninteresting in certain points. Quaternary is character and object. This is when physical objects charged with meaning for their characters to bear important parts of the storytelling. In this way, inner experience and outer objects can be connected. 2 and 2 fails at this parameter, as there is no object in the film, only a concept of 2 plus 2 equals 5. There is no dynamic interplay of character and object, but it could be said that the object itself is the concept that brings subjectivity and physicality to the sum. As the sum has significant meaning in the film, it is charged with that meaning. It takes on and carries out an important role in the storytelling work of the film, acting as a catalyst for the political meaning behind the film. Lastly is simplicity and depth. People sometimes assume that in order to have depth, a story must be complicated. Actually, simplicity improves the likelihood of depth. Films telling simple stories are most likely to be experienced by viewers as being deep, because they leave a habitable space inside for viewers to enter and explore and construct meanings for themselves. This is something that 2 and 2 does to perfection. It takes a simple concept that 2 plus 2 equals 5, and if you deny that, you will be punished. Putting it in a school setting everyone is familiar with gives this underlying concept an undeniable amount of impact. The depth can be understood in terms of the depth of emotion the film inspires in us. When the student stands up for what he believes and ends up getting shot is a perfect interplay of simplicity and depth, with depth in this case referring primarily to the depth of feeling the heartbreaking scene evokes in the viewer. When all of these aspects are put into perspective from Raskin's and Poe's theories, we can see that the story is simple and clear, allowing the viewer time and space to reflect upon and participate in the construction of the story. Characters remain consistent with essential core that defines them, but their actions are never foreseeable, all leading up to an impactful ending that the director clearly thought out before making the film. Along with Marx's theory, it puts the political aspect of the film into view and shows how really deep this message goes. I think the real message to take away from this film is having the right to question something is a fundamental and democratic principle. Just like a child who constantly questions everything to better understand his or her surroundings, as adults we need to be able to exercise our right to question if we want to begin to deal with the situations which challenge us. This is even more impactful when you think about the structure of the film. Freedom of speech is a right, not a privilege.